Hey, welcome. Today, we are going to talk about the invisible networks that basically run our world. These are the systems we all rely on every single day, usually without even thinking about it. And we're about to see just how connected and, yeah, how vulnerable they really are.
So, let me ask you a question. What in the world connects your dinner to national defense? It sounds kind of like a riddle, right? But it actually gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. There's this hidden thread that links the food on your plate to the security of an entire country. Stick with me, and we're going to unravel it together.
Okay, so first up, Section 1 are digital lifelines. We're starting with the stuff that forms the absolute backbone of our modern lives. So, what do we actually call all these systems? Well, the official term is critical infrastructure sectors. It's a bit of a formal name for a pretty simple idea. These are the services that are so vital that if they ever got disrupted, it would have a massive, serious impact on our security, our economy, and even our public health and safety.
A good way to think about it is like a nation's nervous system. I mean, look at this list. You've got agriculture and food, banking, communications, energy, transportation. The list goes on and on. Each one of these is like a nerve, sending vital signals and resources all over the country. It's this huge interconnected web that honestly touches every single part of our lives.
And that brings us right to our second section, a system of dependencies. This is where we're going to dig into how all these separate systems are really tangled together, creating what you could call a single point of connection, and more importantly, a single point of failure. And this, right here, is the absolute key. The energy sector just can't work without the communication sector. The food supply, it completely depends on the transportation sector. Every single one of these critical systems is deeply, and I mean deeply, interconnected, especially because they all rely on the internet. But here's the catch. That exact same interconnectedness, the thing that makes everything so efficient, is also the system's greatest weakness. An attack on just one part of this web can send shockwaves through the entire network.
And this is where we get into modern conflict. See, cyber warfare isn't just about hacking emails anymore. It's about targeting these fundamental systems. An adversary doesn't need to launch a missile to cause total chaos. They just need to figure out how to shut down a nation's power grid or its financial markets.
So, this all leads us to the real core of our explainer here in Section 3, Defense on the Front Line. We're about to focus on one of the most surprising connections of all, how all these civilian systems create a frontline vulnerability for a nation's military. Which kind of begs the question, right? When we're talking about national security, what do you think is the single most high-stakes dependency that exists inside this massive, complicated network? The answer is the military's incredible reliance on commercial systems. A modern military, like the U.S. Department of Defense, for example, doesn't operate in some kind of bubble. For its communications, it uses the public internet. For moving troops and equipment, it relies on civilian transportation networks. And for pretty much all of its vital supplies, it turns to a whole bunch of private companies. And that dependency, it runs incredibly deep. We're not just talking about a few big companies here. The defense industrial base is this huge, sprawling network of tens of thousands of contractors and subcontractors. Each and every one of them is a crucial link in the supply chain, and each one is a potential digital doorway for an adversary. So let's walk through how this could actually play out. An attacker doesn't even need to hit the military directly. No, instead they find a weaker link, say a commercial contractor. They breach that company, maybe they steal some sensitive plans, or even simpler, they just mess with their shipping schedules. And just like that, critical supplies don't get delivered, and military readiness on the other side of the world is directly impacted. So that brings us to our final section, a global challenge, because this obviously isn't just one country's problem. So who is responsible for managing this complex, interconnected risk? And this is the crucial point to take away. While we've been using the US as an example, this challenge is absolutely universal. Every modern nation has built its society and its defense on this exact same interconnected digital foundation. And that means every nation shares the same fundamental vulnerability. In the United States, the primary responsibility for this falls to the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. It's basically their job to map out all these weaknesses, put protective measures in place, and then work with all these different sectors, both public and private, to try and make the whole system more resilient to an attack. And that leaves us with one last big thought to consider.
In a world where military operations, supply chains, and communications are all woven together on a global commercial network, can we really say that any single nation's infrastructure is entirely its own anymore? It's a tough question, and it really defines the challenges of security in our digital age.